first or do that?
Go ahead and introduce yourself and then we'll do the poll.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready, just tell me and we'll start the poll.
All right. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Here we are on our last coming through. We have one more series on these farmer market hotlines, or educational hotlines, I should call them. Just wanted to welcome you. I'm Brian Sparks, the Nicholas County, Nicholas and Fayette County Agriculture and Natural Resource Agent, along with Jody Carpenter. We're going to kind of team this one up. Jody is the Ag and Natural Resource Agent from Barber and Randolph County. It's hard to believe it's June 1st. Half the year is upon us and past. So we're ready to start on the second half. And what a way to bring the day in on kind of talking about some market spotlights around the state. So I think Jody Richmond has a little poll we'll put up there real fast and take 3 or 4 minutes to take that poll, and then we'll move on. So the poll is up there. If you'll just enter that really quick, we're just looking for some information if you're attending or working with farmers markets.
Can you guys see the poll? I'm not seeing it. Do you see it?
Yes.
Okay. And there are 6 questions, so you may need to scroll down.
We'll take another 45 seconds here on that poll, and then we'll get ready to get underway here. All right, folks, let's go ahead and get started. Let's look here and talk just a little bit about the history of farmers markets. You know, when we think about farmers markets, and you know, that's basically a farmer exchanging their goods to a consumer. I mean, this dates back to 5,000 years ago, back in Egypt along the Nile, where farmers would come either trade their goods to consumers for something that they would like. Or they needed for survival. And then, you know, if we kick on over into the United States, you know, into America, you know, in 1634, one of the first was in Boston. And then others moved from there, you know, to Hartford, New York City, and then also maybe over into Philadelphia. You know, it's even noted in some of the history that, like in 1806, President Thomas Jefferson at Georgetown purchased some fresh beef, a few eggs, and a variety of vegetables from a farmer to take in to consume. And so, you know, we've got a long history here of farmers markets throughout. And you know, some these markets still kind of are similar to our past concepts, but they sure are different in the form that they're in. You know, things happened before the industrial age, and then we moved into broader markets, like trading posts began in the 1930s, where other people sold goods for people, and the farmer maybe didn't do some direct marketing there like that. Then general stores popped up, grocery stores, as we see moved and have advanced to where they are today as far as marketing goods. But when we kind of shift back into farmers markets, one of the oldest still that's continually operating public farmers markets. Does anyone know where that may be? Any thoughts maybe where one of the old one is? We know it's going to be on the eastern side of America where we first started landing here in America. And it's actually the Lancaster Farmers Market, the Central Market in Pennsylvania. Was started back in 1730 when the town laid out their town. They actually right in the center laid out a 120 square foot lot to where it would be a public market for farmers and others to sell their goods, sell their wares. And then they moved into an old building that was built in 1889. And the funny thing is, some of these stands at the Central Market have been in the same families for generations there. So they've kind of passed down their spot in that market for generations to be able to market there. And, a lot of little markets popped up around on the streets and whatnot along in Pennsylvania, and especially in Lancaster. But this is still one of the country's oldest public markets. So kind of just a little interesting fact there to deal with history. Something I put in here that I do not know the answer to is what is West Virginia's oldest market? And I don't know, maybe Jody Carpenter will lay some light on that. He may have some years and he may have none from the markets that we kind of polled that we're going to highlight today. But I have a market that I'll talk about later that I know has been in existence for a good bit. So there's a little bit of history about the markets. And then there's also a little bit of homework for you to take home and find out what is West Virginia's oldest farmers market. All right, Jody, let's talk a little bit about the benefit of farmers markets. We talk about promoting sustainability, and what is that? I mean, we hear that sustainability, and here is what I think it is I think that this is a chance to preserve our rural livelihoods and to keep our farmland intact. And I think the farmers markets can offer that for growers. Farmers markets are the chance for a farmer to get the retail price out of their goods without divvying it up. And that full premium goes right into their pockets. And when we look at these farmers markets, you may see some pictures from around the state. Some of them are pretty elaborate and some of them are pretty simple, but they all have one common thing, and that's providing food to the local communities. And if we look at what people are looking for, and the reason they're going to these farmers markets is they're wanting fresher food and healthier. And one thing, the perspective that's changing that Phil Lambert, the supermarket guru, says is that people are choosing the food factors that people look at is one, taste, the ingredients, the source, the nutrition of it. But the main thing they want to know is they want to put a face on that food right now. And so that is one thing that people can do at farmers markets as buyers, is they can go and see where their food is coming from. And that is one of the benefits of selling at the farmers markets. When we start talking about the communities, these farmers markets, they make kind of a social tie. They're linking the rural and urban populations together. These close neighbors are becoming. But what it also does for a community is it creates some traffic for nearby businesses. As you all well know, these businesses can benefit because the foot traffic is starting to come on. And the other thing about a farmer's market, a lot of time, it draws attention to the surrounding area and the ongoing activities that are happening there. So you know, and plus we're given an outlet. A lot of these towns are taking these on and have taken them on because they can give their town a distinction and a uniqueness that gives pride, and they want people to visit there. So the farmers market has actually become a little bit of a hub for a lot of small towns as far as drawing people in to those areas. So they're very important to communities. They're important to social connections also. These, as you all well know, these farmers become good friends. They trade growing techniques. They talk about maybe some of the growing problems they've had, the pest problems that they're encountering, and how to fix those. And so it's also a good time to educate the public. Now think about this, farmers market vendors. It's also a really good time to educate the public about what you go through to produce this food and where it comes from. Tell your story, engage them, engage your customers. When we talk about economic impacts, you know, one thing that kind of is interesting is, you know, the USDA in 1994, they started measuring these farmers markets. How many were out there? There was like 1,755. When 2019, the last look at how many farmers markets were out there, it was 8,761. So we can see they're growing. You know, in 2015, the last hard number I could see is they looked at $71 million in revenue. The USDA, the local food marketing survey, $71 million of revenue was coming in on these farmers markets. You know, in 2019, when we talk about, you know, federal food assistance programs.
Well, I just pulled in there because we had all that.
We got Brandy socializing. We got her cut off there. Half the farmers market accepted federal food assistance. So, you know, and one of the polls to ask is, do you accept SNAP? And as I saw that poll roll through real quick, I think we're running that same ratio in West Virginia. About 50% of our vendors are accepting SNAP in some form or fashion. So that's something that you may take back to your market. We need to look into this. These federal food assistance programs, whether it be the farmers market nutrition programs or the SNAP program or the SNAP stretch if it comes about. So I think you really need to research that, because when we start looking at this, you know, Commissioner Leonhardt talks about West Virginia consumes $8 billion in food annually, and we produce 800 million. Well, a lot of that's going to be our industries around the poultry and maybe the beef production and along those lines. But just think about that. Local food only gets $8 million of that. So we've got a lot of potential there to grasp some more of those food dollars. And if we talk about dollars, well, let's talk about farmers markets and selling like wholesale. So if you sell wholesale, mainstream supply chain, approximately 17 cents of every dollar goes back into the farmer's pocket. Okay, 17 cents out of every dollar, approximately. Now, if you are in a local food system through a farmer's market, or you're selling that avenue, getting that retail price, you can 7 to 8 times that what's going into your pocket. So, you know, there's a lot of benefits to these farmers markets. And one that I think is, think about this, farmers markets can be a great business incubator, because customers are willing to try new products. They're open to that. And vendors are willing to try because the expenses can be kept real low to try a new product. So a lot of times if you have a new idea out there or a new item that you're thinking about selling, a lot of times you can experiment on these farmers market because there's not a lot to lose, and the base there is willing to try this new product. So think about that, trying some of those farmers market. You know, in 2017, the West Virginia Farmers Market Association did a study, and there was approximately $10 million that were taken in through farmers markets. You know, we have some farmers markets that are probably averaging on a yearly basis $15,000 or $20,000, and then we have some farmers markets that may be as high as $200,000 annually what they're taking in. And some of these markets are only open 6 months. Some of them may be open 12 months. So farmers markets have a lot of benefits. And this is a time that Jody Carpenter is going to look at some of the farmers markets that we have around the state and kind of do a spotlight on those farmers markets. And hopefully you can pick up something as a grower that you may be able to take back to your farmers market and utilize.
All right, thank you, Brian. Yeah, that's the hope. So let's look at some markets around the state to see what they got going on, to see if you can kind of take some of their ideas and run with them. So we how we did this is just came up with a Qualtrics and shot it out throughout the state. We had limited participation, but that's all right. We're going to go ahead and do with what we have. And then I know a couple of us have some markets not on here that we can spotlight as well. So we're going to start with the Ritchie County Farmers Market. They're in Harrison County or Harrisville. So central, north central part of the state. Just a regular farmers market. If you look at these pictures, it's what you visualize, farmers coming in there and setting up on tables under a canopy. The public comes, they have that direct relationship with the farmer. They can see who they're buying it from. So we're going to talk about, are they declining? Are they growing? What works well? What doesn't? So for the Ritchie County market, sadly, they are declining just because they have, a lack of vendors and a lack of cooperation between those vendors. So at the end, we have some considerations. So cooperation between vendors, how they get along is very important for the overall success of that market. So for their particular market, what works well is plant sales. People are itching to plant stuff. They love to garden, especially with the years we've had. Amen. So people love to buy stuff and plant it. So when we ask how do folks sell at the market, it's a common thread for everything or all of these markets in this presentation. A lot of them don't have permanent structures, so they're just in a parking lot somewhere or in a park. So those vendors, those farmers, producers set up on the tailgates of their vehicles or on tables underneath the canopies. So we did ask, what are some unique items at their market? What makes people come back, each time they have their market. So at Ritchie County, particularly, homemade pies. People love homemade pies, homemade bread, some craft items, and then the normal stuff like fresh fruits and vegetables. All right, so moving down the southern part of the state into Jody's region, so the Mercer County Tailgate Market. So this is every Saturday from 7 to noon, and then they do it at Wednesday as well from 4 to 6. So it's held in the parking lot of the Mercer County Technical Center. And by the looks of these pictures, they have a lot going on. It looks like a good time. So they have live music, some live food demonstrations, some food tastings, just to kind of get those people out, get them to buy that product from those farmers. So they are growing relatively slowly, but at least they're growing. That's what we like to see. We don't like to see the other trend. So one thing that they want to try, but they haven't yet, is they want to, accept the SNAP dollars. So again, as Brian mentioned, those federal dollars, that's a lot of money up for grabs. And if where can we put it better than in the pockets of those farmers that are producing the food? So what works well for them is live entertainment. At your market, if you don't have live entertainment, you've been thinking about trying it, go ahead and try it once, see how it works out, but it works well for them. So they have tried a Wednesday market, but it did not work well. In the Qualtrics, it mentioned that it was in the school parking lot. So as you can imagine, parents dropping off their kids Traffic does not work well, just it causes a wreck. Not like a literal wreck, but you know what I'm talking about. So again, when you're thinking about your markets, location, timing of day, you know, traffic, how are you going to move those people in and out of where you want them to go? So like a normal traditional market, they do set up under canopies on tables. So they are in the process of developing a permanent structure, which is promising. We always like to see that. But definitely, if you have a permanent structure, good for you. If not, that gives you some opportunity to maybe move the market around the county, take in some different traffic areas throughout the county. So that gives you that opportunity. But just like any other market, they have a healthy mix of both products and people. You know, that's what makes the world go round. All right, we're moving west again over to Spencer over in Roane County. So Spencer, so as you can see, definitely, you know, a tradition or a trend we see in the last couple of years is a lot more plants, a lot more flowers, a lot more transplants, the vegetables going on at farmers markets. That is a kind of a growing trend, but they are growing. Thankfully, they do have a lot of community partners that aid in the growing of that market. So it's important to reach out to county commission, board of education, local businesses, just to try to grow that market. You know, get everybody working on the same page. So something they want to try, they haven't yet, is you know, regular monthly meetings. It's important to keep everybody on the same page, not only, you know, for the success of the market, but you have some operating procedures. Make sure everybody knows what they are, and it will make that market a whole lot smoother than everybody running amok. So one thing that works well over in Spencer is meat. You know, frozen meat. You have vendors pulling up with trailers, you know, in coolers. So meat does very well at Spencer. One thing that hasn't worked very well is a midday or a midweek market. Again, you know, poll your audience. If you think it'll work, you know, try it. It doesn't hurt to try things at least once. So some of the things they have, you know, unique items that people like, consumers like, you know, baked goods, jams and jellies, you know, and vegetables. People, that's what a farmer's market is, right? Vegetables. You know, one thing that was in that that Qualtrics, that survey, kind of stuck out is they recognize that they have a lack of a formal, and I spelled that wrong, a formal organization or a market board. So I think it's very important to have a market board. Just like us as agents, we have an extension service committee. That committee or that board will help shape that market. They'll help, you know, move it into areas that they want to go, kind of keep them out of areas they don't want to go, you know, what works, what doesn't. So it's very important to have some kind of formal organization or a market board to help that market function. All right, up in Wheeling, so this is the Warwood Farmers Market. So they're in the Garden Park up in the Wheeling area, so up in the northern Panhandle. So they're every Tuesday from 4 to 7. And as you see in that picture, one of their highlights is they do a lot of kids activities. So what I like to say is, for farmers markets, our target is mothers, right? You know, mothers that have kids. If you can keep those kids engaged, if they want to come to the market, you know, mom's going to want to come, going to have to bring them, and she's going to buy something while she's there. All right, so they are growing again. That's what we like to see. So back to those kids' activities, they work really well. As long as you have the volunteer base, as long as everybody's on the same page as to really targeting those kids and targeting those mothers. So again, those vendors set up under canopies on tables, just like a traditional market. And that's what people want to come out to the market, and they want to walk around and see, variety. They want to see, farmers. They want to see vegetables that you just picked or flowers that you just picked. Kind of takes them back to that environment that they want to be at. And one thing that works well for them, same thing for the Mercer County market, is live music. So again, they have that to draw people in. And while they have them there, they can, cash out their cash register. All right, moving back down the state, down to Braxton County. So at the Sutton Farmers Market, they're every Saturday from 8 to 12. And as you see in those pictures, it's, again, back to that trend. There's lots of plants, lots of splits, there's some irises in that bucket, some vegetable starch, some herbs. People like to plant stuff, again, getting that product to kind of target that audience, get them out to buy stuff. That's what we want to do. So their market is growing. They have a lot of new vendors, a lot of new customers coming in, and that's promising to hear. So one thing they haven't tried yet, but they want to, is SNAP. And later on, Erica Gallimore with the West Virginia Farmers Market Association. I don't know if she's on here, but she'll be talking to you hopefully about some of the opportunities that the Farmers Market Association has for SNAP. So in the chat, April says for SNAP, if you sell things other than produce, such as eggs or meat, can you also use SNAP to pay for those items, or do they restrict those items at farmers markets? They don't. As long as it's not hot, like a hot meal, you can purchase it with SNAP benefits or food stamps is what they used to call them. But there aren't restrictions like the vouchers, the senior vouchers or the WIC vouchers. As long as it's nothing prepared and not a hot meal, they can buy it with that SNAP dollar. All right, so back to Sutton. So I'm sure it's the same for every market, but those senior coupons are a godsend. Again, they're federal dollars that we allot to the senior citizens of the state, so they can come out and use those dollars, and they work really well at the Sutton Market.
Also, Jody, that's known as the West Virginia's Farmers Market Nutritional Program.
Okay.
But we commonly call them the senior coupons, but also WIC falls under that. They have some coupons that can be utilized at farmers markets also that's different than SNAP.
That is true. Good point. Thank you, Brian. So at this market, some of their unique products are handmade soaps, jewelry, vegetables, and fruits. And they have live entertainment as well. So if that's something that you haven't tried, try it once, see how it goes. I know we haven't tried it up here, so we might, who knows? All right, so Tucker County, and I know Jessica's on here. So Jessica, if you want to, after I'm done talking about Tucker County, if you want to make a plug, that's fine with me. But the taste of Tucker is what they call it. Pretty catchy, right? So they're in Parsons, they're in Tucker County. Every Saturday they'll have a market at the courthouse, and then every Tuesday they'll have one at the Mill Race Park. So that's just on down from the courthouse. So it's from 9 to noon. And as you see in those pictures, we're back to that common thread, those plants. I don't know what is it about plants, but people love them. So they are growing. They have a huge increase of local food, local vendors, local consumers. And we have COVID to thank for that, right? That's one of the good things coming out of pandemic, I guess, is more farmers or more income for those local farmers at farmers markets. So they've also seen that increase in quality. If there's those consumers and enough customers to buy the product, it makes us as producers a lot more diligent about the quality of product that we're producing. So one thing they want to try that they haven't is a Kids Day. So up in we saw in Wheeling up in Warwood, they do a lot of kids activities. So that's something that Tucker County wants to try. In tastings, again, with tastings, there's some extra restrictions that go along with that. But if something you want to try, make sure you have all of that protocol in place. So again, one thing that works well for them, going back to the senior vouchers or the West Virginia Farmers Market Nutrition Program. So their senior center there in Tucker County, they'll bring a van at their market. So it's a good route of transportation for those seniors to get to the market. So one thing they tried, it hasn't really worked out, is a 3-market system. So they tried to do one up in Thomas, one down in Parsons, and then another one at the courthouse. But again, they didn't have enough vendors to really limit or really warrant those 3 markets. So again, if it's something you want to try, make sure you have those vendors. You have enough vendors to really draw those people to that market. Again, traditional market. Those vendors are going to set up on tables, on a tailgate. But one unique thing is those vendors register at the WVU Extension office there in Tucker County. So again, that makes it a little more organized, if you will. So up in Morgantown, they probably have one of the better markets that I've been to, just because it is all year round. So every Saturday from 8:30 to noon, between May and October, they'll have their market. And then between December and April, they'll have a market from 10 to 1 every other week. And it works out. They'll have vendors coming from, Maryland. I have some people here in Barber County that haul up there to Morgantown. They do pretty well. They have that population to draw from. So I kind of thought it was unique. But one unique item they have at their market is kombucha. So you have a lot of health conscious people that they like to buy that and for gut health and all that good stuff. So that's pretty cool. Not a lot of markets have that. I know there's a market over in Tucker County that sells that as well. So SNAP tokens work very well for them. So if that's something that your market hasn't gotten into yet, definitely work with the Farmers Market Association and to see if you can get that going, because that is a tremendous benefit if you can. So again, the vendor applications are ran through the extension office. So they apply for a vendor permit in March, and then the extension office and that market committee, they'll put them through a vetting process to see if it's something that actually fits that market. So again, that's a market board that has control over the success of that market. So some unique items, again, vegetables, fruits, they have a lot of ramps just because they have a high population. Those folks in Morgantown don't have a ramp patch in their backyard like I do. So they go to the farmer's market and buy it. All right, over in Doddridge County, they have a permanent structure, and it looks pretty good. Again, if you don't have a permanent structure, maybe it's something you want to go towards if you have enough vendors to suit that permanent structure. If not, it gives you that homey feeling of those folks walking through a traditional market. So the market in Doddridge County, every Wednesday from May to September, they'll run it from 3 to 6 p.m. And have folks come out and set up on underneath that permanent structure with some tables. Again, they have a lot of variety. Here's that trend again with those live plants. So they are growing. They do have a lot more vendors to make that market successful. But they've had some better marketing strategies. I'm not sure what they mean by that, but if they have some ideas, I'd welcome them to give their input. But one thing they want to try is a food trucks or even a farm to table dinner. We used to do that here in Barber County, the farm to table dinner, and it works out pretty well. So in Doddridge County, one thing that works well for them, and I thought it was pretty cool, they'll have a live feed on Facebook of the current goods that are available at the market. Which if you're not at the market, you get on Facebook and see, hey, do they have beets today? And if they do, you're hightailing it to that market. That's pretty cool. So that might be something that you think about. So one thing they've tried but hasn't worked out is a county-wide yard sale. Again, do you really, well, I mean, it could be to your benefit or it could be to your detriment to have a county-wide yard sale. If you think you can pull it off, maybe try it. But I would probably take in a lot of opinions and considerations before I do that. So again, those vendors register for that market through the extension office. It's that local, route of communication. That one-stop shop, if you will. So again, keeping that organization for that market, pretty well, pretty going. So one unique feature for their market is since they're in a city park, they do get a lot of traffic, and a pretty good opportunity for them is they have a market manager that's paid. So again, that gives that person or one person kind of the accountability to keep that market successful. So again, if that's something that your market can do, talk about it. Talk about it with your market board. Talk about it with your local, your county commission, whoever is a stakeholder in your market. All right, so this is the Lewis County market in Weston. So they're on 499 on the east side of Highway 33. That's the main road going from Weston into Buchanan back to Elkins. So they're every Saturday from May to September. They're open from 9 to noon. Again, that's a traditional market. People are set up on tables under canopies. And some people like to, I like to walk through that. It makes me feel like I'm comfortable. And we want to make those customers comfortable while they're at the market, while they're shopping. If they're comfortable, they're going to be comfortable giving me their money, right? Amen. All right. So in 2020, they have noticed that they do have more vendors, but very few or fewer customers. So they're not sure if that's to blame on COVID or not. But it's another thing where they can do it again this year. And if they notice that trend, they need to take action. That could be a trigger to do something different. So one thing they want to try, and this is kind of unique, but it might work, is a CSA box. From every vendor, put a product in a CSA box, and they can deliver those. If that's something you want to try, talk about it. Talk about all the logistics that need to be in place to do that or to pull that off. So they do have a food truck. They do have a barbecue food vendor. So again, that's something to draw people out. they can eat a barbecue sandwich while they're looking for tomatoes. So one thing they tried, it hasn't worked out, is they tried to do a market on a Tuesday. But again, very low traffic, didn't make that successful. And again, they don't have a permanent structure. So looking back at that picture, those vendors set up as a traditional market under canopies on a table. And that's perfectly fine. I'm comfortable with that. So we're staying in the northern panhandle, the Brooks County Farmers Market. So that's there in Wellsburg. So they operate every Wednesday from 3 to 6. And again, they are another growing market in the state. One thing they want to try is they wanted to kind of implement a kids voucher or a token program. So I would visualize this something where, there's, fake money, in a coin for those kids to use. And again, I think that'll work, just because, our targeted audience is mothers. So if we can touch base with the kids and get them to want to come to the markets, those mothers are going to want to come as well. And they do have a vendor ran market, so they don't have a market board, and that works well for them. Again, take into account your situation, where you're at, where you want to go to. If that's something that fits your vision, go with it. If not, as long as you have, pretty good operating procedures, a vendor ran market can be successful. So here's some of those considerations. And before I get into them, I'll highlight the market. I didn't put it here in the presentation, the Barber County market. And then Brian, he can highlight his markets as well, just to kind of see what's going on in the state. There's all these opportunities that we can take advantage of. But here in Barber County, it's unique just because of the farmers market is owned by the Heart and Hand House. So it's a local mission through the Methodist Church here in and they have a permanent building. So they didn't always have that building. So they started in 1992, just a little roadside stand. And they kept growing and kept growing. So eventually Heart and Hand bought a building, and it used to be an old grocery store. So now they're open every day from 10 to 5. And they have some hours, they fluctuate in the winter, but it's unique as farmers bring their products to them, they drop them off. And then the people that work at the market, they'll display them, they'll put prices on them, and they'll sell them for them. So the farmer can drop it off and go home, back to his high ton or his garden. And it works out pretty well. It's pretty unique just because there is an entity that owns it. So they do have, the funding for a market manager and to hire, some other folks. So that needs to be in play if you want to, go with those opportunities. So Brian, what do you have going on down in Nicholas County?
Yeah, so the Summersville Tailgate Market Association is a group, and this is kind of a unique group. They were in existence 25 years before I started, and I've been here 19. So that's like 44 years that I know of that they have been in existence. And what it is I know, Joe, you don't have a picture. I sent that to you, but last minute. But all it is they have a roof with some homemade tables that they sit under. The unique thing about this market is that it is open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from 7 to noon. So as a grower, you can roll in with your truck, pull it through the building, put your goods on the table and sell there from 7 to noon, 7 days a week. And that actually works pretty good, because the reason it works is it's been there 45 years, folks. It's just like the grocery store that's been on the corner. It's in a high traffic area. It's on a corner. The vendors are consistent. But something new is they added a meat vendor last year. That's a great hit anywhere. If you can add that in there in some form or fashion. This particular one does beef. And then they had one other one that did poultry. It's big corn days. That's a big draw. They'll set up times to where they have big corn harvests, and that really draws in the people and gets the chatter in the community. But here's what makes this one work, is they have a president that is very active. The guy is 81 years old, but he stays on it. Doesn't Facebook, doesn't text, none of that. Personal call to all the vendors and works at that avenue and works the marketing like that. Now think about this. This group actually went to some yard signs, just put them up everywhere along the road. And believe it or not, folks, that was some pretty effective marketing. So that's the Little Summersville Tailgate Market Association. Been there a long time. I think it's one of the oldest in the state, but I know there's probably some around that may be just a little bit older. But in one location, this one's been there for several years. The other county, Fayette, we have the Fayette County Farmers Market Association. I started that one with a group of people. And what made this one unique is the community came to us wanting a farmer's market. And so this one is a little more social oriented, and the community wanted to buy local food, wanted to know where it was coming from. They do Facebook feeds, just like some of those markets you mentioned. This is a younger board. And again, they have a good leadership team, and that's what makes that one work. They have a president and a secretary and treasurer that are really active, and they work it. And so the other one that's kind of neat about this one is they take SNAP, whereas in Summersville, they do not, but this one takes SNAP. They did the SNAP stretch last year. They have a variety of things from baked goods to this. One of the vendors is a honey person with bees, beekeeper, and they have taken that and twisted that product to offer more than just honey. So a lot of little things, but the baked goods is the big draw there, and then everybody feeds their off of that to sell things. A well-established baker, and she works that really well. Again, this group, another marketing tool they use is yard signs, but they go to the 9th degree with these yard signs. You will drive up by the farmer's market and you can't help but catch these because there's 20 yard signs in there that they put up on those days. Now, this market works in 2 locations. One in Oak Hill under a really nice pavilion that was built in honor of one of the vendors that is deceased. And then that one is on a Thursday afternoon. Now, the one that they work also is in Fayetteville, downtown, a little different city. It's on Saturday mornings. A little more tourist attractions there in town of Fayetteville, as you can think, with whitewater and whatnot. And they're open on Thursdays, and they just set on a parking lot under a tent. So those are just a couple examples of the farmers markets we have down here in our area.
All right, thank you, Brian. Hey, someone made a good point about the SNAP benefits in the chat. So they had said, baked goods are okay if they're packaged to take home to eat. If they, if it's a cookie on a plate that they can buy and they can eat there, that's technically not acceptable. So yeah, so make sure it's packaged to take home for them to consume. Good point. Thank you. So Tasha mentioned about the Upshur County Market in the chat box. So they sell every Wednesday and Friday in Weston. It's held in Jawbone Park. So in Jawbone Park, they have a pretty good structure. So Brian, if you remember, that's where we ate lunch on the floor. So that's the structure that they use, and it's kind of similar to the one that we saw at Doddridge County, but it's has a metal roof, slanted. It looks pretty good.
And one key thing to take away there is it was located right in the middle of an active little town. Very active.
Yep. So they have live music. They have from some food trucks. Other vendors, they have some things for kids to do. So again, they're making it an event for the whole community to hopefully sell some more product.
Actually, Jody, I should say, so Buchanan has created an event called Festival Fridays, and being that structure was actually built with a grant through the farmers market. So they allow the farmers to come on Festival Fridays. And so a great idea for your county is if you already have an event going on, you might consider teaming up with that.
And there's a key point. Partnerships is key with these farmers markets, folks. So if the cities and the counties can get on board and again make that community support and community engagement, man, these things they really work well.
All right, good point. Thank you, Tasha. So we're going to, as we talk through this last slide, some considerations for your market. We're going to go ahead and launch the post poll, if you don't mind, Jody. And we're just going to keep talking. So
We don't have it set up as a post poll.
oh, it's just okay. All right, good deal. That's fine.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. So
We will have a follow-up survey that'll go out to all the participants that'll have similar questions at the end of the series.
all right, good deal. Thank you, Jody. So some final considerations for your market. And you've seen some markets throughout the state, what works for them, what doesn't. You've heard, about some markets throughout the state as well. But have those activities that draw people in. If more people come to events at your market, they're more likely to spend some money on those products. So visualize your situation and see if a market committee or a market board would work for you. And either way, make sure you have pretty good rules and operating procedures. Just because if there ever is an event where there's some disagreement, you have a document to kind of hash those out correctly, mediate them without blowing a fuse or gasket. So, a Facebook market group, and Josh Poplowski down in Greenbrier County called me earlier. So this is something that works well for the market there in Lewisburg, is they have a Facebook market group that has everybody in that group. So if there's an update or whatever going on, everybody's made aware of it. But it is a group, and as opposed to a Facebook kind of Facebook account, just because if you make any kind of advertisements on there, Facebook won't want to put in their 2 cents. So make sure it's a group, just to kind of get around the hoo-ha or whatever. And cooperation. So make sure you have good cooperation with your vendors. If myself and the vendor next door, we don't get along and we're competing against each other, it makes things a little uncomfortable for those consumers. So make sure you're competitive, and you got a free market, but you're also, being a good person and taking into consideration what other folks are doing. So here is a list of it's actually a web page that has all of the markets throughout the state on it. Can you see? No, you can't see that. There we go. So there's a web page there, and I'll put that in the chat box as well. But if you go to that, that's a map of the state, and every market that's statewide is pinned on there. So you can see where they're set up at, what times, where they're at, all that good stuff. So it's a good way to find your local market. So that's all that we have for today. If there's any comments or questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box or unmute yourself. Kind of keep this a discussion to hopefully make your market a little more successful.
And what we were hoping was to show around the state some things that other markets are doing. Maybe you could steal an idea from to help you with your market there.
I'll mention one thing that we did mention, one of the other programs. We're working on a grant that we can get weekly price reports on different commodities across the state. So that's something we're working on to maybe have for next year as one option to kind of monitor prices across the state for different produce things. Anybody have other questions?
I put that link in the chat box, and I can send it to you, Jody, as well, to put it in an email.
Thank you.
Hey, so you heard a few new ideas today. Take them back to your market group, and see if you can make them work. Another thing is think outside the box. And sometimes it doesn't have to be real elaborate. Something simple will go a long way in these farmers markets. I would have thought yard signs would have worked. And when I say yard signs, it may be just something that says corn today, fresh bread.
One thing we were able to be successful at, Brian, is because our market is promoted as like a tourism thing, a draw for our area, we were able to get hotel motel money a couple different times from the county commission to use for promotion, like brochures and things like that for advertising to the market. So I don't know if anybody else is using that as a promotional source for their market or not.
Good point, Jody. It's all about advertising with these things.
And I'll say back to the SNAP benefits. It's probably been mentioned somewhere, but with the West Virginia Farmers Market Association, if you don't accept SNAP, call them and they can provide you with a machine, one machine for location, and walk you through how to set that up and see if you need, internet, or maybe you don't, I don't know, but giving them a call, they're always willing to help you anywhere they can.
That's a good point, Jody, because a lot of times people, when they start looking into this SNAP as a farmers market group, they get a little, oh man, this is a lot, and so it's good to know that maybe if you'll put that in the chat of a good connection that they can work with to start with this SNAP, because it can be a cumbersome process for someone. And if someone can walk them through it, that's a great asset to have. Because it's a little bit of work for a farmer's market to take these SNAP, if they do it as a farmer's market, because someone has to kind of run the machine, and unless they do it individually, which I think you can do it both ways, as an individual grower or as a market in tow. But when you run it as a market in tow, it takes one person that pretty well sitting there handling that. But it's listen, it's great. It's great. It'll add some value. Hey,
All right.
Thanks for your time. Welcome to June. Let's hope it doesn't go as fast as May.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for joining us. Next week, we'll be back again with our final workshop in the series, which will be food safety for farmers market vendors. If anybody has any questions that they know that they would like us to address, please send them to me at jody.richmond@mail.wvu.edu. We will get the YouTube recording put up as soon as we get it downloaded and everything. But thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jody Carpenter.